The first thing I wanted to do, I don't know, now I'm having issues here. There we go. Okay. The first thing I want to show you is that right now I'm in the main AOP Wiki. You can see the address is aopwiki.org. So this is where you would go to actually create a wiki, or to create an AOP in the AOP Wiki. You can see there's a lot of information on the page, and I'm going to advise you to just take a moment and read all of that when you have some time, because it's really useful. The first thing is that you're going to go down to this before you start, and it walks you through some commenting policies guidance, which is available in the user's handbook, linked here, and Kate's HTPC online training course, which is linked there. There's contact if you have questions, and there's lots more detailed help here in the help section. As Kate mentioned, you need to request access in order to create a wiki and get a login. It's not meant to deter people, it's just meant to make sure that whoever is creating AOPs at least has some idea of what they're planning to do and some background knowledge of the project. So here's detailed instructions on how to access that, and some frequently asked questions. This page is really interesting because it actually actively goes through and outlines questions that the SAAOP has had and answers them. Also, this version, if you looked at the original version of the wiki, this is going to look very different to you. This is a 2.0. It's a new, totally new build of the wiki. And so if you had a password before, you need to migrate your account, and hopefully that won't be too troublesome. I'm going to come back to this page because that's also a really important feature. But now I'm going to go to the training wiki, and oh no. Of course. Okay. So, when you go to the training.aopwiki.org, is everyone there that's following along? And have you been able to log in using the password information? Yes, yes. Anyone not logged in? I want to leave you behind. Okay. So the first thing that I want to point out is that, as Kate mentioned, one of the really seminal aspects of the AOP project is to create a network of AOPs. And implicit in that is that we all throughout the world have toxicity information. And if we could all harness that information, we would, in one central framework, we would be able to use it more easily. And so the wiki is meant to be a place where different investigators can come and add, maybe they don't have information on a whole entire AOP, but maybe they have information on, like with Ellen's lab, just a certain aspect of toxicity, that they can come add that information. So that's not an entire AOP, maybe it's one or two key events. I say that to make clear that when you start the process of creating an AOP, the most important thing is that you take what's already there rather than duplicating effort and adding to it, if you can. Obviously, if you have new key events, we want you to add them. But to the extent that things like protein binding, estrogen receptor activation, other key events that are really common and are probably already here, search for those and look and see what other AOPs are already there in your field that you could find. And so if you go to the page for AOPs, for example, you're going to find a search. And so you could search for genotoxicity. And no AOPs have a title of genotoxicity, but we have, and keep in mind this is the training wiki, so it might look a little different than the true wiki. So we have lots of AOPs that have genotoxicity in the full text. Okay. If we go back to our list, I just want to give you an example of one. And so I'm going to scroll down to 62. And what you'll see is this is an AOP page. You're going to have your title, you have your authors. Point of contact is really important so that the AOP administrators can contact you if they need to. You'll have a status of an AOP, abstract, and here you can see this yellow text. The yellow text is directions. So they haven't actually entered an abstract into their AOP. Some background. But you can see if you come all the way down to the sort of tabled components, you have a molecular initiating event, you have some key events, and an adverse outcome. Now those can be joined, and looks like it's an incomplete AOP. They can be joined in key event relationships. And there's sort of a basic network view. The system automatically creates this depending on the information that you enter. There's a lot more text information that you can provide for an AOP on domain of applicability. There is a space to upload a graphical representation if you have drawn something out in PowerPoint and you want to provide that. And then there's a space for assessment of the AOP. These qualities that Kate was going over the Bradford Hill considerations of, what does this AOP look like? How confident are we in this evidence and that this is actually what's happening? I think there is also a section on considerations for potential application of the AOP. Maybe you think this would be really good AOP to develop a test guideline for. And references. So the other thing I wanted to point you to is the history and discussion. For every single page, you can look at the history of, okay, this was created, it was changed when. You can look at a discussion. Someone, and Kate was talking about having access to reviewing and commenting. So you can make a comment on an AOP if you think something's incorrect or you have more information. Okay, so you can go, I just want to really quickly provide a look at, here's our list of key events, and again, you can search for each key event. And if you look at this key event, reduction 17-beta estradiol synthesis by ovarian granulosa cells. It's really specific. They have this information called a component. And so to be able to make sure that the information that is entered is consistent across key events and across AOPs, the new version of the wiki is trying to implement these classifications to, instead of just typing in decreased 17 beta estradiol synthesis. You have beta estradiol decreased is the action. Okay. The other thing that I should say too is that if you don't have this information or you don't know what it is, it's okay to leave it blank. We're trying to collect what we know, right? You can see that there are several AOPs that have this as a key event in them. And if this was a molecular initiating event, it would say that here. You can see that. There's some information on taxonomic applicability, how it works, how it is detected, and what is the evidence supporting the taxonomic applicability. So, and I'm just going to give you a quick tour of a key event relationship as well. If you click on these, you'll go to the key event page. But if you click on leads to, that is the key event relationship. So there are several AOPs that have this relationship in them. And just as with a key event, for a key event relationship, there may be information on taxonomic applicability, sex or life stage applicability, and there is a description of the biological plausibility and empirical support down here. So this is where you would enter, and if you hover over these little question marks, there's some more information that you can find about each section. Stressors, you might be wondering about stressors. Stressors are stressors. They're either prototypical or example, or maybe the only stressor you have, chemicals or other items which are known to impact a particular key event relationship, key event or molecular initiating event. So now that you have seen that, we're going to go ahead and create an AOP. So the first thing to note is that as it says on the beginning of this training AOP, first of all, you want to make sure you're in the training AOP Wiki, because that's a place where you can get comfortable with entering information. Maybe you make a mistake and you need to start over, that's okay. But note that information may be lost at any time. It may get too full and we have to delete everything. So just keep that in mind. This is not a place to build your AOP, it's a place to practice. Okay. If we go to AOP and you want to create a new AOP, you're just going to select New AOP. And for the purposes of our demonstration, we're going to write calculation. Oh, they don't like that because I've already done it. And it looks like I made a typo, so that's great. So we've entered our title. It doesn't conflict with anything that's already in there. We've got our short name, which is just a shorter name. Oh. Okay, so has everyone been able to create their AOP? You may need to change the title a little bit if you're following along. Anyone have any questions before I keep moving? No? Okay. So what you're going to want to do is enter all of this information. Point of contact, contributors, and the abstract once you will come down to being able to add stressors down here, you'll just click these buttons. And what I really like about this, the developers have taken a lot of time to go through and give detailed instructions. All this orange text is sort of detailed instructions and considerations while you're building your AOP. But when you hit Add Molecular Initiate an Event, and when you start typing, and so for our example, we're going to use calculation of, and if you pause for a minute, it will come up, oh, there's already an event. So we're going to use that, okay? So we have our molecular initiating event here. You can add your key events. And I'm just going to go through and add these, and then you will see you add your adverse outcome. So now your AOP looks like this. You have your events. If you come down to the network view, what you're going to see is you have key events. They're not linked anywhere. That happens with your key event relationships. So you add relationship. We decide this is a direct relationship and that we don't want to specify the evidence or quantitative understanding yet. We want to get everything in place first and then can come back and edit it. So that's what we've done. And then you can see the diagram will start to link them. Okay, now we have a link between the MIE and the key event. Now, if we wanted to go to the key event page, you can see that someone's already added some information here. They've added this key event component, but they haven't added anything else. Oh, they've added some taxonomic applicability and some information there. So this is an example of we're building an AOP using key events that are already in the wiki. And if you for example, for something like protein binding happens in a lot of different processes. And so there may be a key event on protein binding, but it might be not quite have the information that you need to put in it that's specific to your AOP. So what you would do is you can actually edit the AOP, or excuse me, don't edit someone's AOP, edit the key event. So I'm actually just going to cancel that because I don't want to edit it. All right, we have a few minutes left. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I have some questions. So what would happen if you're trying to input a stressor that is like some sort of nanomaterial that is characterized by many different not like you're just importing dioxin.
Mm-hmm.
It's all characterized. So I guess what would you do in a situation like that? And then also, is there data sharing? Like, how is there some transparency and like people upload either raw data or data that
Well, I can take that one first. This is publicly available and viewable. So if someone doesn't want anyone to see their data, they should put it here. I would love for people to share as much data as possible into the wiki, yeah. But that's the consideration there. Many people feel they want to publish their data first and then put it into the wiki. That's of course reasonable. You could also, however, once AOPs have come through the OECD process that Kate and Ellen was talking about, those are considered publications that can be cited too. So that's another way to make sure you have credit for your work. And the first question was a nanomaterial. So that's it's a little tricky. I mean, I would say you would want to enter as much specific characterization as you have to be able to specifically link it to a particular effect. Any other questions?
The download's put on the training site. I think it's not working. Is there something similar on AOP Wiki? Because there's no download button there. Database download somewhere?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really sure. I think isn't the intention to have downloadable data within the effects database? So the picture that Kate showed of different wiki components around a circle, there are like Effectopedia and AOP Explorer. I think they might have more of what you're looking for. The wiki is pretty text-based.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure, but it should be because it's in a common format.
There's an ACI button.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot of data.
Okay, right, yeah, exactly. I don't know, it's a good question for Steve, though. Steve, I'm not sure.
Also, I'm curious, is there a link between the key events and the things that can measure the key event? Like assays that can measure key events? That's all that can work somewhere.
Well, when you enter, there is a way to enter information on how this key event can be measured. And in fact, that is the definition of a key event, is something that can be measured. So there has to be some way to measure it.
And I think there are fields also for assays for that key event. So,
I don't know, we can go, might take me a minute to find it, we can look offline. So I know that was just a taste of the wiki. I want to say that there are people who really want to help mentor folks to help them put their information into the wiki and learn how to develop an AOP. So I would encourage you to get in touch with the developers and get that process started. I would also say that I mentioned that I was going to talk about terminology, and up on the screen actually you'll see that they're in the process of creating the event components and predefined ontologies to be able to make sure that all of the AOPs are as inter-cooperative as possible. And so you can see and read more about that process here on the main AOP Wiki page. And the aim is to collaborate and share your findings, and so I would just encourage you to stay involved and let us know if you have any questions. And thanks for coming.